everybody. Welcome to episode 3 of my soccer / football podcast, video, blog, whatever you want to call it. Today, the week after the US-Mexico game, that's exactly what I want to discuss in this episode. To start, we all know the results. It was a 2-2 tie with the United States scoring 2 goals in the first half and then Mexico coming back in the second half scoring 2 goals to tie it. Now the first half, I thought the Mexican team had a pretty good starting lineup with people like Brizuela and Peña who have shown their skills in previous games, especially with their club teams, but also with the national team. Peña and Brizuela recently, and Zavala's been more of a constant than those two. But really, in this first half, those 3 players did not live up to what their potential was. I think especially Zavala and Peña, they were sort of missing and didn't hear much from them. But and that was the reason why Michael Bradley, who I read a lot of people were voting as the best player in North America, which is sort of funny. He did dominate the first half. He was going and passing and distributing and cutting through pretty much a non-existent midfield by Mexico. And then, of course, he scored the goal off a corner kick and assisted in the second goal off a flick header that went to Wondolowski for a tap-in, pretty much. So Michael Bradley definitely had a great first half, and it was looking very bad for Mexico. Going into halftime, and this was sort of a late game, so I was getting sort of tired, but I didn't leave and kept on watching during halftime. I think I went to do something, came back, and I didn't see who the subs were, but I did see that Moises Munoz was taken out, which he didn't really have a bad first half, but I liked Talavera better. And I noticed that Brizuela, or not Brizuela, but Zavala and Peña were taken out. Raul Jimenez was put in, and that really changed everything. The second half, Mexico was aggressive. They were on the attack. Jimenez was doing great. Marco Fabian came out a little bit. He didn't have a really good game, but then Rafa Marquez off a corner kick, as he usually does great off the ball movement, was wide open in the middle for that header that just went perfectly in. We've seen that so many times from Rafa Marquez, and at first I was like, man, this guy's too old. He's too slow on defense. So he can pass a few long balls, and he's a good leader and captain. But he's just too old. But he's proving me wrong. He scored that goal. The most awesome thing that I think he did, other than that goal, was he just shut down Landon Donovan on one specific run, which is great defense. And that reminded me of the times when he was in Barcelona, just stopping people on the run. And he also did that as well with Michael Bradley. So he gained my approval again. Maybe he's not too old to make this World Cup interesting. So Rafa Marquez, definitely a big game. Jimenez, a big game. Especially since Saturday in the America Cruz Azul game. Jimenez just scored an awesome goal in America's loss to Cruz Azul, but he's definitely been impressing. Pulido scored the second goal for Mexico, and he's been doing really good also. I think the stat that they said in the game was he scored more goals than appearances for the national team in the Mayor. So there are some bright spots, and of course the negative spots. At least Herrera was able to make some changes, understand what was going on, and improve in the second half. The first half, though, was terrible, and that just brings more questions on how we're going to do in the World Cup. One thing I was watching, and this is a shout out to Futbol Source. They did a podcast with 4 individuals, Mexi Wiso and some other guys there on Twitter. If you get a chance, follow them. They did a pretty good video podcast on Ustream, and they talked about what are we going to expect? Are we ready for the World Cup? Is Mexico ready? Are they prepared? And many people can say no, but when would you be ready for the World Cup? A lot of people the World Cup is sort of something different. You can be all prepared and win all your preparation games and be on top of the world, and then you can go into the World Cup and lose to like a Cameroon or lose to like a team that's not supposed to beat you. I think when the World Cup comes, it's just all up in the air. Any team can win one game. Of course, you want to prepare and want to be fully ready with your preparation and your ideal lineup and your ideal players and the highest level that they're at. But in the World Cup, anything can happen. Big teams can get upset. Small teams can make surprises. We'll just have to see. I think Mexico has a chance, as a middle team to make some movements, but it's going to be really tough. There's going to definitely have to be a great upset for any type of huge World Cup for Mexico to happen. And one thing in the game versus United States was a Julian Green, who was the young prospect for the United States that everyone's saying is going to be the great next up-and-coming player, sort of like the next Freddie Adu 2.0 type of player. And he showed some skill, some quickness. I think in one of the goals, he actually made a bad back pass or mishit the ball and bounced it back to Mexico, who actually came into the box and scored that goal. So that was something bad on his part. He made a slip on one occasion, slightly injuring himself, losing the ball. One thing that the U.S. fans are going to be riding on, or have been riding on, is the cutback just outside the box where Mexican defender put out his leg and he took the dive, took the fall, which it was probably a legitimate foul. Not that if he would have not been fouled, would he have maintained possession is a question, but definitely wasn't a penalty. It was outside the box. Could have been called, but it wasn't. That's just a typical move done by many footballers, so I didn't see his performance as really too impressive. He's still young, so we'll have to see. But the other controversy for the United States fans was the offsides call on Eddie Johnson. Now, on ESPN and Univision, the call, the camera angle was with Eddie Johnson running toward the left. So you can see Eddie Johnson, the defender above him, and the pass being thrown. And from the replay, immediately the Univision, and I imagine the ESPN announcers were saying, well, that was a bad call. He was onside, so he was behind the defender. The linesman was on the opposite side of the field. So if the linesmen were on line, which in a screenshot it did show he was pretty close to being on line, he would not have seen, if he was correctly positioned, he would not have seen Eddie Johnson, because Eddie Johnson was on the other side. He would have just seen the Mexican defender, and Eddie Johnson would have been blocked off. If he was offsides, he would have seen a glimpse, or Eddie Johnson in his different color jersey peeping out the side of the Mexican defender, and he would have been able to easily say, okay, I see his jersey, he's offsides, raise up the flag. So I think the vantage point for that linesman was really good. Now, another screenshot that shows, and I think clears up the whole situation, is I think Televisa had their camera angle from the opposite side of the field. So from there you see the Mexican defender, then Eddie Johnson on the other side of him, and it obviously shows Eddie Johnson offsides while the pass is being delivered. So that's a lot of controversy. Many people thought, it was 3-2, should have been 3-2 U.S. win. They were upset with the linesmen as well because earlier on the Mexican offensive side there was a lot of calls against the U.S. But all in all, I thought it was a okay game. The first half was not acceptable for Mexico. The second half was more like it. So hopefully things improve, and we'll see what happens in the upcoming preparation games, one of which is in Dallas versus Ecuador, and that one I will be planning to attend and hopefully have some more videos and coverage of that for you guys. And that's about it for today. This is episode 3 of my football soccer blog. One thing I'd like to say is to shout out to those writers and everybody that's at Footmix Source. Mexi Wiseau, Joel, Cesar, and I forget the other dude's name. They did a pretty good podcast, video cast on Ustream. Definitely check it out. And you can follow me on Twitter, Beto_ATX, BETO_ATX. Follow me for more news and opinion. Talk to you guys later.